Hey friends, it's Gloria and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to chat about 10 books that are coming out in 2025 that I will almost 100% read. I've made very few, I think maybe one or two anticipated releases videos. I either read those books, tried them, didn't like them because I didn't really know anything about the authors. I just picked books at random, or I never got to those books because I actually didn't really care that much when the time came for them to be published. But these 10 books I have all either read from the authors or sound super interesting, and I think that I will pick them up. I truly picked 10 books that are coming out in 2025 that I think I will read for sure. Maybe one or two, we'll see. But with all the research for 2025, there wasn't that many to choose from. I had a really hard time finding historical fiction books that I was super stoked about, and most of the books on here are romance randomly, which I don't read much romance, but I do have a few authors, and they're very popular, beloved authors that I pick up because they're just fun, and it's fun to be in the know of what people are talking about, and I do enjoy a sweet little romance. They're never 5 stars for me. They're not the most amazing books of all time, but they are sweet and fun, so I do have a few of those to talk about. So 10 books coming out next year that I'm gonna read and that I'm super stoked about. So I'll start with historical and then romance and then a few random ones. So the first historical book that is coming out in February of 2025 that I'm excited about is Black Woods, Blue Sky by Ewan Ivy. I've read 2 of her books, The Snow Child and To the Bright Edge of the World, and I've enjoyed both. The Snow Child a little bit more, but she writes these character-driven, slow, atmospheric, historical, magical realism books that are often set in the Alaskan wilderness. At least the past 2 were set in Alaska. They are very atmospheric, wintry reads, would highly recommend. But Black Woods, Blue Sky seems to be a Beauty and the Beast retelling. There's a bit of a romance element to the story, and it's set in Alaskan wilderness again, and there's a survival story. I don't really read the blurbs. I don't want to know too many details. I just know that it's atmospheric and wintry, and I don't really read magical realism books. That is not a buzzword for me. I'm not drawn to those kinds of stories, but I do dabble here and there, and since I'm familiar with this author and have enjoyed her books in the past, this one I'm really excited to pick up. Next for historical, coming out in March, is One Good Thing by Georgia Hunter. Like I said, not too many historical novels out there that I'm actually stoked about. We don't have a Kristen Hanna, there's no Amy Harmon, which I'm actually kind of shocked about. There's no Rudis Petties. They had some releases in 2024. So 2025 is kind of looking bare for historical. I'm sure there's gonna be more released or announcements that I'm just not familiar with. But from authors that I've read from before that I was interested in, I couldn't see too many. But Georgia Hunter is on the list. I read We Were the Lucky Ones and I really liked it, and that is a very popular, beloved historical fiction novel that came out several years back. There is now a TV adaptation of that book, but this one is set during World War II. We Were the Lucky Ones was all about a Jewish family during the war, and I don't think this one's any different. It does follow the Jewish perspective of Italy and Germany, and when Germany is invading Italy, I think there's some strong female friendship in this book and sticking through it together. It says it's a remarkable tale of friendship, motherhood, and survival. Definitely all themes that I'm interested in, and I'm thankful that this historical fiction cover is a photograph, because I would much rather have a photograph than a picture of a woman walking away like they all do. This next one is from an author that I'm not familiar with and I have not read from before, so maybe the least likely to get read out of the 10 as it comes out, but I'm still very interested. It is also coming out in March. It's called The Eighth by Joanna Miller, and it is about also female friendship, unlikely female friendship in Oxford University in the aftermath of the First World War. So it's in the interim war period, which I think is interesting to me, especially after reading through the Maisie Dobbs series. I like that time period. I also like this cover in comparison to all the ugly historical fiction covers there are. Next, we don't have a release date or a cover yet, but the final book of the Emmeline Lake Chronicles is coming out. So Emmy's War by AJ Pierce is coming out sometime 2025. I read it on her website, so that is listed, but I just don't know when exactly, sometime in the year. I read Dear Mrs. Bird, I believe in 2021, and absolutely loved it. And then Yours Cheerfully and Mrs. Porter Calling have both come out. So it's 4-book total series, Emmy's War being the last one. I'm very excited to read it and wrap up the series. I think it's a great little historical fiction series and a lot of people love it, so I know several of you watching also really enjoy the series. So hopefully we can all read it next year and enjoy the conclusion of that series. Next, let's chat romance. The first one I will be picking up is by Borrow or Steal by Sarah Adams. This is the 3rd book in the When in Rome companion series, starting with When in Rome, Practice Makes Perfect, and then this one. It's set in a small little town in Rome, Kentucky. These are characters that are in the books, side characters in the other books, and now this is a side story. I found that Sarah Adams books aren't very steamy. There is a lot of, tension, but it's very sweet. They're kind of silly, unbelievable, over the top rom-coms, but they are just sweet and fun. You know, they're not supposed to be like the most realistic, believable thing ever, but they're a good time. So I will be picking that one up, and that is coming out in January. Then April is a big old month for a romance. We got 3 books coming out in April. On the 1st is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. I'm not sure what the tropes are of this one. I think maybe enemies to lovers. A lot of these romance books are formulaic and have very similar plot points. I'm curious if the title has anything to do with Taylor Swift. I feel like people did make that connection, but I have no idea. But I'll probably be reading it along with everyone else. The next one I'm excited about is Swept Away by Beth O'Leary, coming out on April 10th. This is a British contemporary romance. I have read The Flat Share, The Switch, and The Road Trip by this author. I think The Flat Share or maybe The Road Trip were my favorite. They were both 3-star reads. Like, by favorite, I mean I liked them, but they were amazing. I didn't really like The Switch too much, but I'm interested in this new one. The only thing the tagline says is, what if you were lost at sea with your one-night stand? I'm gonna be honest, I don't really love like out on sea books, but I think I'm gonna still read it anyways, just because it's fun. And I think the cover is pretty cute. And finally in April, on the 22nd, of course, Emily Henry's newest release, Great Big Beautiful Life. Everyone's gonna read it. It's gonna win the Goodreads romance category. It's gonna be an advanced listening copy on Libro FM because I feel like all of her books have been. So I will definitely be listening to the audiobook in April, and we'll see how this one fares. I have liked Funny Story and Beach Read by her, and I hated Happy Place with passion, and the other ones were fine. So we'll see where this one lands. The tagline is that 2 writers compete for the chance to tell a larger-than-life story of a woman with more than a couple of plot twists up her sleeve. So it almost feels like she's going back to the beginning with beach read / book lovers vibes of being in the book world and having these like rivals come together. Another romance, but this time historical, by an author that I've really enjoyed in the past is Sophie Irwin's newest book, How to Lose a Lord in 10 Days. I really loved A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. I thought it was so fun. And this one seems to be a play on, you know, how to lose a guy in 10 days. I don't know, but it says, rich, handsome, entitled Lord Ashford has every lady in England longing for his hand in marriage. Everyone, that is, except Miss Lydia Hanworth, the only woman Ashford wishes to marry. Should be fun. A Regency romance. I've really liked one of her books. I thought one was fine, and I don't know how this one's gonna go, but I will be reading it. And lastly, the 10th book that I will be reading in 2025 that I'm very excited about is the Hunger Games prequel, Sunrise on the Reaping by Susan Collins. This is the anticipated story of Haymitch's time in the Hunger Games. He was a mentor in the original trilogy to Katniss and Peeta. This is his time, which I think what we learned from the original books was that it was really hard and gnarly, but he did win the games. I really enjoy the Hunger Games world. I thought that the previous prequel, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, was okay. It was a little bit weird and a little bit like of a letdown. As the book ended, you're like, what? So I'm curious where this one's gonna go, but I know that this one's gonna have a big fan base behind it. And I think there's already a movie like coming out as well next year. I don't know if they're just making them back to back, so we'll see. But I will be reading it as well if I can get my hands on it. That one comes out in March. So those are 10 books in 2025 that I plan on reading. Let me know if you also plan on reading any of these. What are your thoughts? Any of them now on your TBR, or if there are any books that I missed that you're excited about, you think I would enjoy, please let me know in the comments as well. Thanks so much for spending some time today with me, and I will see you guys in another book video soon. Bye.